Hello, our viewers and listeners. Once more, we are back to the studio with these wonderful ladies, that is Jacinta and Anita. These are people we've seen from before. Anita is today gonna be we are gonna see only her photo because there is issue with the internet. But Jacinta, we are gonna have you. So maybe just for people to hear your voice, Anita, can you just introduce yourself a little bit? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy to be here. And so my name is Anita Sevang. I'm a sociologist and I worked within child protection and within lecturing at school. So I love speaking about this subject. I think parenting is the most important, yet the most difficult job in the world. So we can all do with some support along the line.
Okay. A little bit unclear, but we will see. Hopefully, it will be clearer as we go forward. Jacinta, welcome once again to the studio. Today, the topic is on parenting styles and bullying. Anita has written modules, and today we are going to capture on the module 2. We are done with module 1, and today it's module 2, which she's going to talk so much on it. And side by side, Jacinta is also going to be contributing on the topic on parental style and bullying. I know it's a big struggle, especially for us immigrants, how we can do parenting in a way, and the society is really expecting a lot from us. At the same time, we have also Barneoppdragelse in the picture. Everything is a bit frustrating. So we have some specialists here, Anita and Janita, and Jacinta, who are going to really help us go through everything. I want Anita to first do an introduction of the module so that we really have a grips of what the module is all about. Thank you, Anita.
So today we're going to talk about the importance of different parenting styles, because research is actually quite clear that even though we really unfortunately cannot make bulletproof kids, there are things we can do in our parenting that can prevent bullying or reduce the risk of both creating bullies and creating victims of bullying. So to get some ideas what you could do to prevent that, I think is really valuable knowledge, especially considering nobody wants their child to be a bully or to be bullied. And you really know that even if your child is not the bully or not being bullied at school, we know that it creates an unsafe environment, which we also know then is not good for learning. So it actually affects everyone in a school if the environment is not safe. So I think it's a crucial thing to keep in mind, and especially now going back to school, to create a safest possible learning environment that we can. And we also have some bonus tips about how to get your child to sleep well, which is obviously also crucially important if you want your child to function the best way possible, both learning and just coping with life and feelings and all difficulties. We are much better equipped if we can sleep properly. That goes for the kids as well as us as parents. So yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about important subjects.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I just want to do a little bit of confirmation. Just Jacinta, do you hear clearly? Is everything okay?
It's not very clear. I guess when Anita speaks, she should give breaks in between so that the echoes don't flash back and disturb what she is saying.
Okay, thank you. So I think you got that, Anita, because we have Anita on phone. So that is where the problem is. So we'll have to be doing a little bit of check back and forth to ensure that our listeners and our viewers are getting it, because this is such an important topic, and especially for us and for Anita, who has worked with kids as a profession, as a Barnevan, someone who has worked within the Barnevan, it could have been really easy, important that everything comes out. Thank you. I'll go directly to the first question. What does it generally takes for one to feel loved? I know this is a topic on its own that Anita has worked on, but just an introduction. So I'll ask Anita to start on that, and then Jacinta also takes us through the love language. Thank you.
I think in order for people to feel love, and especially with kids, they need to feel love. So it's an important difference between knowing that you're loved with your brain and really getting it and feeling it in your bones or in your body. And to feel love, I think we, as parents, we need to remember that we love our kids unconditionally. And that means whether they are behaving in a way that we like or not, we love them unconditionally. And I think we are going to get into a little bit more in depth, but in Dr. Chapman's work, they talk about 5 love languages, and I think that's really important because we can speak different love languages. So some people really need words of affirmation, some people need quality time, some people need acts of service, some people need gifts, and some people need physical touch. Now, we all like those 5 things, and we all like all 5 of them, but there is one that's more important than the others. So if we are talking different languages, we will have what we call a low love tank. So we can talk love in a way that we want to hear it ourselves, and then we may not need to the other person. So that's a bit of a shame if, let's say, you want words of affirmation, so you feel loved if somebody praised you or say they love you or say, well done, you really made a great effort, and blah, blah, blah. Whereas if that's what you want to feel loved, then that's what you're giving automatically to your child. Yet if the child really needs quality time, he can get as much praise and as many love yous as you can give. You keep saying I love you, and he still may not feel loved because his love language is different. So he doesn't really get it, because what he needs is for you to spend quality time one-on-one and just doing great things together. And if you don't do that because you're too busy doing your life, even though you praise him, you say you love him, he won't feel it. So it's quite important to feel love. In a way, you need to learn the other person's love language so you can fill it up in a way that makes sense to them.
Thank you. It was good to actually know that there's a way someone also people have different preferabilities. Like someone might just want a touch, someone might want a gift. So that was really good to know. Jacinta, what can you say about that love language? If you can also help us to understand it further.
Yes, I want to say thank you to Anita for going through this topic. I think you went through the topic from another way, and I'm going to take it in another way, and we have a point of connection there. And love language, I have to talk about love language, but I have to go a little bit backward before I come into the love language, because sometimes we can use the word love language, it's love language, but actually it is different from what is being practiced. And so if I have to talk about love language, I will first of all try to bring us as parents, to bring us as teachers, to bring us as institutions working like child welfare institutions, teachers, kindergarten teachers, school teachers. Let us be on board, and then we can be able to decipher what is love language. And by so doing, I will caption it positive discipline, because love language can also be negative. the way we express it. So I want to put it positive discipline. And when I put it like positive discipline, I'm trying to, because before you try to make a child or to write something for a child to feel, or to praise a child, we have to decipher what is it that the child needs. That is the first thing as a parent, a teacher, and every other person should be able to establish. That is the foundation of love before we start speaking and identifying the different love languages. And so, what do children really need? What do our children need? They need security. They need a sense of belonging. They need a sense of significance. They need a sense of connection, a sense of worth. And when we look at these, put them together, then we will start to understand how to speak the love language for a child. Once the child feels a big sense of belonging, the child feels more secure, a sense of connection, the child feels more secure, and then you can express that love language. So when we talk of positive discipline, it is those discipline methods that only helps to build a confident, a capable, confident child. And for a child to be capable, confident at adult age, we need to get these needs established. And so the 5 languages of love, we have 5 languages of love, which I will put them across. Like you have the words of affirmation, as Anita rightly put them there. How do these words of affirmation even start to come by? Before you even start talking about or praising your child, some children, they like to know, they want to feel love by having words of praises. So you can praise your child, and when you are praising your child, you should be aware of your tone and your words and how they come out. Because what we call praises could be rather demotivating for a child. And before you start praising a child, the child should feel a sense of belonging, a sense of significance. So when the child feels all this, and before you come to express those words of affirmation, praises when they do something, they already feel secured and connected. Then you can say that. Because you can't just get up from somewhere and say, well done, when the child does not feel a sense of belonging. That is the first love language, words of affirmation, which match hand in glove with the sense of belonging, connection, and significance. And then the second love language that I'll be talking about will be about the sense, the act of service. The act of service. And what does the act of service? The act of service is talking about identifying their children who feel love only when the love language they find helping, like they find helping others fulfilling. And if a child sees that helping others is fulfilling, they want to do that. And we as caregivers, we have to identify areas in which these children can operate. So you just lend your assistance to lighten the workload as they struggle. Help them to learn to do something better. Because you find a child who wants to dress up alone. That is trying to take your position because you know that you have to dress the child. But the child feels that I want to do this service alone for myself. So you just can stand there and give directives and show support. Maybe he puts the to dress, and your boy wants to dress, and he starts by putting on the trousers first, and then you can tell the child, no, you start with your shirt, button up your shirt, and then you can take off the trouser. You are just giving that assistance. And when you are doing that, the child feels loved. That is the love language of that child, because you only guide the child to do his or her own things. And then we also have the language of quality time. There are some children who want to feel loved by seeing their parents spend quality time with them. What is quality time? It is making them active in their own milieu. For instance, a child wants to watch his or her cartoon, but we are already matured. We don't have time for that. But because you want to show love for this child, you need to sit down and watch the cartoon with the child. You have to play games that involve that you have your full attention. Most of us that we do parenting, you agree with me that you can easily identify this group of children, especially when you pick a phone, you start talking with somebody, and they immediately realize that, oh, you are paying your attention somewhere else. Then they come to talk with you. They come with some important distraction, like, I need this, I need that. That is the first way you can identify a child's love language. He wants you to spend quality time with. So can you stop that and spend some time with me? That is another love language. And then we have what again? We have receiving gifts. This is a love language that we have to handle in a very careful way, because this can either make or mar the behavior of our children. So it is not only, that is why I captioned it positive discipline and positive love. Yeah. So if you realize that it's a child that needs to, when you give gifts, they feel love. So when they do something and you feel like you are so happy with them, give them gifts. But you should be able to differentiate the kind of gift you give to your children. And how do you differentiate this gift? You need to establish a list of their needs, so that if you have to give this gift, it should be taking the place of their needs and not wants, because once you are just fulfilling their desires. And then the next love language is the physical touch, the language of physical touch. There are some children that, them to know that they are loved, you need to cuddle them. They need to sit with you. They need to sit on mommy's laps. They need to sit on daddy's lap. Everything, they want to feel intimacy with you. And we have to be able to meet up with that. So it is not enough for us to say that I love my child, when you cannot identify their love language. Once this is identified and you establish their needs, you'll be able to supply the love language to them in accordance to their needs, so that it doesn't become negative love. It will become positive love, falling under positive discipline. I beg your pardon, when we use the word discipline, discipline is not a negative word. When many people hear discipline, they start panicking. Discipline simply means teaching and guidance. That's all about discipline. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for these wonderful points so far. There is something that is also like when I'm asking the next question, I know it's sometimes a little bit hard, but I would say, like, when you're taking a child to bed, some kids can be very dramatic, you know. How can you take a child to bed without causing drama? I'll start with Anita. This is a question I'm asking Anita, but Jacinta, you can chip in, because one thing I know, for example, where I come from, we could easily fall asleep without being really sent to go and sleep. But you find in Norway where the schedule is a bit different. Like, kids have to go to Barnehage, kindergarten, very early. That means they have to be put to bed very early as well. So that can be very dramatic for parents. Anita, could you help us here and just help us how to take a child to bed without causing drama? Thank you.
Okay, so in the evenings, I have 3 questions that I recommend everybody doing with their children in bed or sometime before. It's up to you where you do them, but we have 3 questions I think are good for preventing bad sleep or preventing it being difficult to fall asleep. So there's the one question. The first question is, what have you been upset about today, if anything? Is there anything that's upset you or that made you feel angry? And that there are two reasons that I asked that. Well, a few reasons why I asked that question. But for sleep, talking about the stresses and the upsets of the day is really good for your brain and the feelings to get into the thinking part of the brain. So just using the language and being heard and understood and feeling safe that your parents can take it, that your parents will listen, and that they're setting up that they can sort of handle it. And talking it through so that the stresses of the day and the upsets are not just sort of there in the subconscious. Because if you're stressed and scared and not being able to talk about it, then it can be difficult to stop thinking about it, and therefore you may worry, sometimes unnecessarily, and then it's difficult to go to sleep. So that's the one question. And the second question on those 3 question list is, what have you been proud of today? And that is to build self-esteem as well as self-confidence. So there's a difference. Self-esteem is what and self-worth is how you value yourself. So if you see yourself as important, you should talk about being proud, not just something that was difficult. Let's say you did something difficult at school or in maths, but it could also be a way of being, like that you're proud of being brave, or if you were being courageous, or you can have been proud for being helpful, helping your sister out, or being a good listener, or all the like different ways of being. So that as a parent, you're communicating that it's not just being brilliant, but it could be that you're hardworking or some personality traits that the person could be proud of. And when you're asking about them being proud of something, they are being aware that they are doing something good every day. So that's the second question. And the third question is, what have you appreciated today? And I don't actually allow my kids to go to sleep before they answer that one, because it's very good prevention from depression, and it's very good to just have that positive way of thinking. So there's always, no matter how difficult things are, there's always something to appreciate. So I think that is also, there's a reason behind that's the last question, because to think about what you're appreciating and to talk about what you're appreciating, even small things, whether it's a nice sunset or nice drink of water, or it could be a nice flower, it could be anything, those things. And to know that your parents are going to ask you that every evening, it makes you go and look for things to appreciate. So I think that's those are really good questions. So that's something we do to prevent bad sleep. And also we were mentioning quality time earlier. That's probably one of the most important languages to fill up the love tank for the child to feel special. I've recommended 20 minutes a day of quality time, special time with one child. So obviously you need to organize it. If you have loads of children, to have somebody else look after the others for the time being, and just spend that 20 minutes where the child gets to decide what you're doing and really be present, and leave the phone, leave the siblings, leave the radio, leave the television. So there's no distractions. You're really with that person for that time, and just be there, play with them, try and talk about things, have laughter, have cry, have anything. really be with that person, because if they cry or laugh or you have fun, they feel that connection and they feel safe and they feel valuable. And if they can get laughter, that's really good for their brain. So that's releasing stress. So that's the things that I would recommend to prevent bad sleep. But also the whole routine thing. Kids feel safe with routines. So they've got to have a good evening routine that they have literally every day. Obviously, it's different in the holidays, but in the normal days, whether it's I don't know what you do, watch telly, read a story, brush teeth, put your pajamas on, have a bath. It doesn't really matter as long as that you've thought them through, because they really need to be similar every evening, because then they sort of subconsciously starting to get ready to sleep. And also, before you start your evening routine, let them get like 10-minute notice so that they don't feel upset that they couldn't sort of finish off what they were doing beforehand.
Okay.
And then you've had some children who can be quite scared. Actually, about 30% of some young kids in primary school, they have difficulties with sleep, and sometimes they are scared of things. So to just have read them a story or listen to book. What's that in English? Listen to a story, basically, and just to have the thoughts going in a different direction, that can also help. And then you have some kids who get up in the night and they come in and disturb the parents. Then you should just walk the child back to their room and make them go to bed in their own bed. And you can also, if they're a bit older, if they're old enough to understand, they could also have assistance. So I've known some parents to be very successful where if they don't disturb them in the night, they could get like a star sticker or something, and then they can, when they have 10 stickers and they want to not disturb the parents for 10 nights, then they can get some sort of a prize. And again, using the love language could be really useful, because then if they get 10 stickers, for example, then for one person, quality time is their love language. They might want to have a special day with just mum or dad or somebody. Whereas if the child has got physical touch as their love language, they could have like a massage or just sit and cuddle on the sofa, watch a film, or do, depending on what the child really wants. And I've sometimes been surprised when we really use the individual needs in those sort of prices. Sometimes they do things that they want, things that really don't cost anything. So that could be some tips. And I know of some sleep experts, they really recommend like a few minutes of just soft physical touch and massage kind of thing in bed. That can help as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I love that aspect of stickers also. Like it's a new one to me, but I think it's one of the best. If a child can really connect to that, it's kind of physical. You can see it, you can touch it, and also like the quality time with the person you love, either mom or dad, you go out with them. That was really nice. So because of time, we'll just go directly to the next question. But Jacinta, you can add if you really feel like you want to add on that. But the next question is like, some kids turn out to be bullies, and some can turn out to be very vulnerable to be bullied. What normally results into this? For a kid to be either a bully or to be bullied?
Well, there are, like I was mentioning in the intro, you cannot create bullet-proof children. So all children can become bullied, and unfortunately, a lot of them can become bullies. But I think we're being a bit silly if we don't dare talk about it, because a lot, especially in the Norwegian society and probably a lot of other places, they are just blaming the schools. If there's bullying, it's like, what does the school do wrong and what can they do to stop it? And it's not really true that it's just about the school, even though the class environment and the other parents and the teachers really make a difference. The parents are known to make a huge difference in their upbringing, because there is clear research showing that there is a connection between relationships between parents and children and parenting style and bullying. So, there is definitely something we as parents can do to try and stop bullying, definitely.
Okay. What is it, for example? I know the next Jacinta is talking soon, but what is it that a parent can do to stop being a bully or vulnerable to be bullied? Just a short one, yeah.
So there are some authoritarian parents. They are actually creating the most aggressive bullies. So authoritarian parents, those are the parents that believe that the children should submit and they should really be listening and do what they're told without demanding an explanation. They should have a certain care of their parents, and then they should be punished or rewarded if they're doing exactly what they're told. And sometimes there's physical discipline, and we call it violence, and some call it sort of parenting violence as a way of threatening kids to be doing what they're supposed to be doing. So those are that's the parenting style that give the most vulnerable children. And a lot of the people who are bullies are also bullied. They have been bullied before. It's very rare that the bully has never been bullied themselves. It can happen as well, but so those are the most chances of getting the bullies. There is also another parenting style which is called elusive parenting. It's the other extreme. It's a kind of a weak parent where they don't really set boundaries. They let their children decide almost anything, and a lot of the time those kids become very domineering. They are used to getting to dominate and decide everything. So they are not learning about what happens if they're going beyond the boundaries. And if they're doing something wrong or something hurtful, something that's difficult to others, they are not used to the parents setting the limits or putting their foot down saying, no, that's not okay. So, this can happen if the parents are mentally ill, or if they're struggling, or they're just too exhausted. They don't have the energy, maybe, or so they're not teaching their child that no and stop or enough is enough, that actually means something. They're not actually learned that, so they don't know when other kids are saying stop or when you should stop things with them either. There's that sort of leave us with the last and what research has showed us that is the best style of parenting. That is, of course, something in between. It's a woman, mature parents. So it's the parents that are not authoritarian, but authoritative is the word. Is a fancy word for it. So they are loving, yet they are also clear. So they are the ones with the least chance of having children who become both bullies or victims of bullying. If you're doing Dr. Chapman's, there is a book called Happy and Safe Children or something like that. It's Dr. Chapman's 5 love languages for parenting to kids. So if you're combining that with this book about parenting styles and bullying, you will find that the love languages, and there are also other effective ways of parenting, you can have that warmth necessary to get the security and the relationship and the connection, but you're also learning how to work effectively with being clear about your boundaries and being a leader when needed. You become a lot better and more effective as a leader and being very clear when you're picking your fights. If they have full love languages, full love tanks, and that they are clear that you love them unconditionally and they feel loved and you have that connection and you have the safe environment, then it's better to be easier to discipline them and also to be a clear leader when needed. So the warm and mature parents are the ones that with the least chance of getting both bullies and victims of bullying.
Yeah, thank you. That means you've actually handled the question of what are the types of parenting that I was going to ask later. But now, Jacinta, I would just ask you to also chip in with both dramatic children when they're going to sleep and the bullies and vulnerable kids to bully. Could you just say something on those? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Beatrice, and thank you, Anita, for good explanations. I want to start with bullies, why children become bullies, or why they become bullied, or any of the other. One thing I want to start here with, I always like to talk about positive discipline. And it is important to note that human behavior is motivated by the desire for belonging, the desire to be recognized, the feeling of connection and worth. And this is linked to the 5 love languages. And when these are not working hand in glove positively, then there comes a point in time where the child can either become a bully or the child will be bullied. If all these aspects are handled positively, the child becomes a confident child, a capable, confident child. Once for instance, when we talk of bullying, we are talking about a milieu, either in the house, at home, or in schools. And if we take a situation of a weak parent who does not set out the boundaries and the child controls at home, the child definitely wants to control at school. And this results in domination, wants to dominate everywhere. And this can result to kind of bullying. In the same way, if a child is not given the possibility to be able to do some services for himself, the child becomes dependent at home. The child becomes dependent out of home. The child becomes dependent in school. And all these things are physical, that the colleagues or the classmates or the peers will notice. And all the time, if they want to say, can we do this? They start to say, this one cannot do this. They identify. They either run away from the child because they are not capable. And that is the negative effect of love language, of the practicals of a love language. Because you have now rendered the child dependent in every situation. So that kind of child will bully. Like, can't you get up and do this? Can't you just hold this and fill the jar with water? And then you look at it as bullying. But it is all the consequences of negative parenting, as Anita rightly said. But what I want to come out clearly here is that when we talk of parenting, we are always struggling to look at the mother, at the father in the home setting. But I want to go out of that box, because if we take the context of Norway, the child is born from 1 day to 9 months, is brought up at home. From 9 months, the child goes to the kindergarten and then henceforth. And so the kindergarten caregiver is the parent at school. The teacher at school is the parent at school. And so all these love languages, they move from home after 9 months of the child into the community. The community is the schools and the rest I've mentioned. And so if the language that the child has been able to adapt to it in school cannot be followed up at home, cannot be followed up in school, this leads to discouragement, and bad behavior automatically sets in. And the child is suffering from a transition from home. For example, at home, the love language at home is the language of touch and feel. He moves to the kindergarten, he's crying and struggling to be cuddled, and the kindergarten caregiver is not able to identify that need, that love language of the child. It ends up in a different way. And then I want to move out of it again to talk about connection. When we talk about connection, imagine we are talking with the context of Norway. The child is of immigrant background. We have to face the fact, right? The child has come to Norway, for instance, 5 years. In the house, the child speaks a language. The child comes to school, is confronted with a different kind of language. The child is struggling to fit into a system. The child is new. The child does not have a sense of security. The child does not have the sense of belonging, the sense of connection, the sense of worth. And the child is struggling to penetrate this milieu. And sometimes with a culture, you realize that the child is wanting, he wants to join this peer group. They are not her. He wants to play with this side. They are okay. What happened? The child jumps into a fight. And what is the caption? The caption is that the child is a bully. But that child is struggling. He has a problem that has to be identified. But once you caption that child as a bully, the report goes to Barneoppdragelse to handle that problem. And once Barneoppdragelse receives that problem, it is already negative parenting. And that is where there is a big problem with children. And then you end up not identifying the need of the child at school. You now confront the parent at home, and the parent at home is confused because I do everything for my child. Why is it that it's different in school? Why is it that it's different in kindergarten? I have not had this, and there is no way of understanding. So when we come to platforms like this, is to try, because I'm actually taking a study about 3 groups of children born into Norwegian homes, brought up in Norwegian homes and language. I'm taking a study about a child of an immigrant who is born in Norway and is being raised in Norway, and the language they speak at home and the language they speak in school. I'm also doing a study on a child who has been brought from another country, that is an immigrant. And when we talk of immigrants here, we have the West immigrants, which sometimes boils down to really zero. They are not immigrants because they can identify by all indications. And then we have the West-South immigrants, which we are talking about immigrants from Africa and Asia. And these ones are easily identified by just their physical appearance. And so when these children, they come into school, take them as if they are 5 years of age, put them into a milieu in Norway and see how they struggle. I think if we carry on this research, we will be giving an applause to immigrant parents, we'll be giving an applause to the Barneoppdragelse, we'll be giving an applause to the caregiver at kindergartens, at schools, so that they can meet together and identify what is the need of this child before we give a caption to say it's a bully or he's been bullied. That is how I try to look at it. I am still at the preliminary stage of this research. I'm trying my best. It's an active research that I'm trying to come out with some finding and see how it works. I think, and
Wow.
Anita, you are a brand worker. I think you will try to appreciate this work for me.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Then probably once you're done with the research, we'll just have you back on stage, when you have the full findings and everything. But that was also very good input, both Jacinta and Anita. Thank you so much. It's very important to understand why from nowhere you're having a bully at home, or all of a sudden your child is just being vulnerable, to be bullied by anyone. Thank you so much, guys. We'll be running a little bit
There is
faster because of time. Anita, just chip in. It's okay.
was just one thing that you mentioned about it's almost like an insurance for children not to feel bullied, and
Yeah.
how you can help it. And there are two quickly, and one is that safe connection and feeling love unconditionally at home. When you are feeling safe at home, you gain some good self-esteem. That way, when somebody says something in school, they don't take it so personally. They don't take it to be personal. If somebody's saying, stupid glasses, or something, anything that somebody's just saying, which is silly, not bullying, but it's silly teasing, because they're not so aware of what is okay to say or not. Some children do not take it so personally, and they don't feel threatened, and that is if their self-esteem is okay. And there is another thing that can help as well, and that's the most important thing, is to have a few or one or at least some friends. So if they have some friends, if some silly child is saying something in school, whether it's about your wearing glasses, being fat, or whether you're a bad jumper, or whether it's your skin color, anything, they don't feel that it's so important what that boy or the girl is saying, because what's important to them is what their friends are saying. So if you can create children who are okay to make friends, then that's the best insurance. That's all. I just wanted to say those things because I think they're quite important.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. It's becoming a little bit up and down again, but thank you for that last contribution. We didn't take one of the questions, but I'll just ask one question. This, the modules or the topic we are talking about, and the parenting and everything, is it something that is applicable for both a native Norwegian and an immigrant, or is it just for a class of group? I'll start with Anita. You'll talk to us on the same. I know Jacinta already mentioned something about both the groups, but maybe just start and then Jacinta will conclude later. Thank you.
No, this is not anything to do with culture or background, religious or otherwise. The love languages and that concept and the research on bullying being tested and tried in loads of different countries. So that I think the way that we express, let's say, physical touch is very different, and the way what kind of gifts we will give, but whether it's giving a dessert or somebody a favorite drink or fruit, it doesn't really matter. But those are different ways in different cultures. So we will have slightly different dialects, but the need of feeling connected and the parenting styles what creates less or more bullies and bullying doesn't really matter whether you're a native or whatever your nationality or background is.
Okay, thank you. Jacinta.
Yes, Beatrice, thank you again. Thank you, Anita.
Yeah.
I think I actually agree with you because parenting styles This is a very good research that has been made by great researchers. And in establishing these parenting styles, a parent is a parent, a child is a child, no matter where the child is born, and no matter where the parent finds his or herself. I think the parenting styles do not have any discrimination about where the child is born or where the parent finds himself. But what is important is that both parents, immigrant parents, indigenous parents, they have a duty to do research on how to do parenting. It is one of the fields where people feel that parenting comes naturally. But I challenge ourselves as parents, as caregivers, that parenting is a whole school on its own. There are a lot of books that have been written about parenting, which is actually helping. Parents should take their responsibility to read some of these books, buy some of these books, attend some parenting seminars, attend parenting classes, so that they can become better parents. In as much as we struggle here to say that children become this, they become that, it is because, for me, I consider everybody working with a child as a parent. So, as a teacher, get these books about parenting. As a mother or a father, get these books about parenting. As Vane, they are full of knowledge about this. And actually, I have a few of these books. Like, I am reading one of these books. It's a very good book on parenting. I'm not advertising for this person. Positive Discipline. I think it's written by a group of researchers. And I have a couple of them. I order them online. I buy them.
Wow.
Because I want to be a better parent. I want to be a better caregiver if I am supposed to give care to a child. And I think this challenge, I give it to all parents, immigrants or non-immigrants. It's a challenge for all of us. Parenting is important.
But there is that there are some backgrounds which are more vulnerable for having had their parents being authoritative, as in using punishment and physical violence as a part of their upbringing. It's more difficult to adjust to a better new sort of modern way of parenting if that's what's in your bones, kind of, if that's what's your automatic. We often copy our own parents, even though it might not bring out the best in our kids.
Okay, maybe just to bring a little bit of clarity there. Discipline. How is discipline related, or how can I say, like, how is disciplining in Norway different from disciplining in Africa or immigrants from other countries? Could you guys just clarify a little bit how you understand disciplining so that we are on the same ground? Thank you. And maybe Jacinta start and then Anita.
Yes, thank you for that question, Beatrice. I think that the word discipline, like I said before, doesn't really mean, it's not a conventional way of thinking about discipline. Discipline is actually it has a Latin root, disciplina, which means teaching and guiding. And here we have to understand that children are not tabula rasa, that are born empty to be filled with information. They have their innate abilities that parents, caregivers, teachers, we only have to unfold these abilities from the children. And so when we talk of discipline in the context of Norway and discipline in the context, I want to be very specific, because when we talk the context of Norway and context of Africa or context of Asia, it is a kind of marginal comparison, which I a little bit disagree with that, because discipline in the context of Norway is the same discipline everywhere. The only difference is that discipline goes according to context. Where in Norway here, we have every facility for positive discipline. Discipline has nothing to do with punishment. We have all the facilities for positive discipline. We can have the time to give time to our children. We have the technology. Everything is available. The discipline that takes place in Cameroon, where I come from, is the same parenting style. But the only difference is that the boundaries are a little bit more stricter and discipline is stricter. For example, in Cameroon, you don't have corporal punishment, that is beating and laying. It's forbidden by law. But if you look at the government itself, forbidding this, what infrastructure has the government put in place to take care of this situation? That is where it is lacking. And parents at their individual level now have to be strict in laying their boundaries. And that is where there is a difference. And you will agree with me that the discipline in Africa is not that different from the discipline in Europe. The only thing is that you can have instances where you have to punish a child just to make the child understand the boundaries. And punishment does not necessarily mean physical abuse on the child. Punishment is as a deterrent and takes a lot of forms.
Thank you. I know this one, especially this aspect of disciplining, we'll have to really go deeper into it, especially being that that is where most Barnevan normally have issues with immigrants, actually. For Anita, could you just explain the discipline aspect in Norway so that we see the difference? But I know we'll highlight or shed more light later just to bring a little bit of understanding. Thank you, Anita.
Thank you very briefly. I would highlight how to get the child into creating self-discipline, which is another matter. And I think also discipline should be to pick your fights and to choose which fights to take. To pick your nose with wisdom, I think could be a good start. Really think
Thank you.
things should I decide as a parent, and when you do decide, no, this is up to me because I am the adult, I understand the long-term consequences of this, I need to say no, but stand for it. So don't say no unless you're going to follow through. So be a word and pick your fight carefully.
Yeah, by the way, that is also a good one. You have to pick your fight because not every fight is worth fighting for. Otherwise you'll be in trouble every day. So that was a good one. This is actually one of the best discussions we're having, especially when it comes to child or parenting styles and everything, because it's really good for us to know how to balance the equation, the way we were brought up, and now we are in a different country. How do we go about it without, coming headlocks with the with the state, to be honest.
With the state.
Yes, because we have been having headlocks with the state. Yes, exactly. We are closing now, guys, and I would like us to close like this: the applicability of the love language, and as you said, your final word. Please, Jacinta, how do you apply the love language as you close us? Thank you, and then Anita will take after you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again, Beatrice, and thank you, Anita. You have been a very great resource person. I've learned a lot from you. And the love language. To apply the love language, please identify the needs of your child and apply the love language in a positive way. Don't pamper the children and make them weak and make them not confident, and then just identify their needs, meet up with their needs in a nice way. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Anita. As you close us, the applicability of love language, and thank you.
So make sure you find out your own love language and have your own love tank filled up so that you're capable of being wise and completely present with your children.
Okay.
So look after yourself as a parent first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. And to our viewers and listeners, I hope we are not going to get, in trouble with the state when it comes to disciplining and the parental styles. You have to be very careful. But just
We are just doing our job here
next
and
time.
trying to educate people.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Till next time, it's me, Beatrice, Jacinta, and Anita. Have a nice evening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.